But hey, some people didn't quite have a great experience, and that leads us to Campia. Is that correct?
That is correct. Let's pivot now. Let's pivot to John Campea, who actually I am a fan of. I watch the John Campea show every week. I mean, I don't watch every episode, but I do watch him very regularly. For those of you not familiar with Mr. Campea, he is I would call him a Hollywood insider. He's done a lot of reporting over the years. He was with AMC for a while, which bled into Collider. He was huge on Collider, and he kind of branched off Collider and did his own thing, and now he's doing the John Campea show. So I'm a fan of Campea. I enjoy his coverage. The guy knows his stuff.
He does.
But he went to Disneyland this past weekend, I believe, and he had quite the experience. He tweeted about it. Boy. And I'm going to give you a little screenshot here. All right. So a little redacted, a family-friendly show. I got to redact a little bit of this. But Campea said here, Disneyland is a joke. Paid $1,500 for tickets and hotel so we could do Avengers and Resistance. Queue at 7 a.m. and it said Resistance was full for the day in 5 seconds. 12 p.m. queue for Avengers and it said it was full in 5 seconds. Can't refund passes. F Disney. Hashtag first world problems. So this has been all over Twitter. And again, I am a big fan of Campea. I like and respect Campea quite a bit, but I don't know if I completely are. I'm not on board with this 100%. Dre, what are your thoughts on this tweet?
Listen, let's start with the substance of what he's saying, because I think we have different takes on the substance versus how it was delivered. Right. Substance wise, I am sympathetic to the argument that he's forwarding here, and honestly, I can agree with him in some respects. Look, we've touched on it before. The Disneyland experience for the guests has become extremely complicated.
Yeah.
Right? Very, very complicated, and is very beneficial to the super informed and the super fan. Right. And to a lot of other guests who are going there that are far more casual in how they approach the Disneyland Resort, how they visit Disneyland Resort, you're left at a loss. You're left out in a lot of ways. Look, I overheard a conversation relayed to me from somebody who did go to the parks, and it was like, "Hey, look, how do you order food? How do I get food?" That guy who doesn't know that you have to make a mobile order and all those kind of steps. That guy's going to be screwed in a lot of different areas of his day if he doesn't know that basic concept, right? It's some of these things, I will say, are not in Disney's full control. A lot of these were hampered by some of those restrictions that we had talked about being lifted in the previous segment. A lot of those were just mandated by the state that they had to do certain things in order to facilitate the Disneyland operation during this time period. And we're hoping that a lot of that changes with today onward, right? June 15th. But let's be fair here. Some of these things they did it themselves. Some of these things they may have made overly complicated. And the description I use is, hey, you were kneecapped before and now you've taken everything that you've had and have kneecapped yourself even further, right? Kind of the way I view it, and I think that speaks to this. I think that's indicative of this reaction here. But go ahead, Orange Grove. What do you have to say?
Yeah, here's the thing. It's kind of funny. In terms of substance, I completely understand where Campea is coming from too, in terms of the frustration. Yeah. Because I actually went through almost to the letter, the exact situation that he had. He stayed at the Grand Cali. He talked about the hotel. I was at the same hotel on Memorial Day weekend. I had almost the exact same experience. At that time, Avengers wasn't opened yet, Avengers Campus. So I was just going for the Rise of the Resistance boarding passes because my girlfriend has never been on it before. So we were really trying to get those Resistance boarding passes. I woke up at the hotel bright and early, 7 a.m. to get those passes. And like Mr. Campia alluded to, the same thing happened to me. Within 5 seconds, they were gone.
Yeah.
Was I disappointed? 100%. Was my girlfriend disappointed? 100%. Were we frustrated? 100%. So the substance, I don't disagree necessarily with his frustration, because we were frustrated, you know? Now, I don't necessarily know what the alternative would be, because if you have standby and with the state restrictions at the time, you're always going to have to turn people away, whether it be virtually or in person. I don't know what the alternative would be, but I understand Campia's frustration.
Yeah.
The way he went about it. You know, this guy is very connected to Hollywood. He's got sources within Disney. He talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
This tweet's a little cringy, a little embarrassing. I mean, if you have friends within the company with the F Disney stuff, it's a little bit, I think he would have been better served to have a more constructive, professional tweet. I think that he would have went farther with the criticism than he did with this. You know, I don't know. I think he's kind of, he's got a huge audience. And if he would have came out with a more professional tweet, I think it would have gained traction. And I think that maybe Disney would have addressed it. This kind of puts him on the ropes a little bit, because he's kind of attacking them. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
And this is why, I mean, he had to have known this going into it, right? He had to have known that, you know, I mean, I don't want to call it access journalism, but, you know, there are certain benefits that come along with maybe being careful about your wording when it comes to criticizing the Disney company, right? Is that fair? Okay.
Fair, totally fair. Absolutely.
I just wonder about the motivation, because he had to know about this. He had to know that, yikes, man. I mean, even if the Disney company would reach out and make it right, do they really with this kind of reaction? I don't know. I mean, this is, I just, like you said, I mean, I know maybe it was an act in frustration. Maybe he just couldn't think clearly at the time because he was so frustrated. And I understand that. I get that. But this one is, this one's very interesting in that regard.
Yeah. And, you know, look, I had a situation, not the same exact situation. I mean, I did have the same exact situation with this, but I didn't complain about it. But I had a different situation at my hotel. We talked about it on your show, Freshly Squeezed, where, you know, there was an error or, you know, a miscommunication or what have you in regards to the room reservations for the Grand Californian. And, you know, if I would have came at it like this, you know, and dropped all these cuss words and was screaming at the person at the other side of the counter, I probably wouldn't have had a very successful outcome. Yeah. You know, I mean, people don't usually respond to that, but I didn't. I was frustrated, just like Campia was, that they messed up my reservation, but I didn't disrespect the cast member. I didn't yell at anybody. I wanted to get my situation fixed, and they did. They fixed it, and they actually came through even more so because they upgraded my room, and they were very accommodating. I just think sometimes when it comes to this kind of stuff, especially in Campia's position, I mean, look, I got a very small amount of subscribers. Campia is huge. He's massive. If you would have approached it with a little more, you know, professionalism, in my opinion, I think he would have probably had a better outcome. I think Disney might have reached out and said, hey, look, we're really sorry for the situation. We'll give you boarding passes for this day. Come back. We want you here. We want you to experience these attractions. You know, I just think that because he came in with such fire and the vulgarity, I don't see how Disney can even respond now, because it's like you see a Disney representative commenting to this and be like, we're sorry, Mr. Campia. I mean, after all the F-bombs, it's really hard now to even respond to it, you know?
That's true. And honestly, he could have, look, I mean, and you know, yeah, maybe boarding passes could have been given out, but honestly, you could have leveraged your influence in a way that maybe created a solution. What if John Campea had somebody reach out to him and say, hey, you know what? You had a bad experience. How can we improve this going forward? And honestly, that's who we need right now. We don't need somebody spouting off on Twitter. We need somebody in the guest's corner attempting to make these things better for all of us collectively.
Right.
It just, I think it would have been more beneficial to go about it that way. Look, he's got to get the clicks, and, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, look, this guy, he's got, what, 47 retweets? I mean, 40 quote retweets, 822 likes. I mean, the dude's killing it on Twitter.
No, he is. And this prompted a lot of discussion with people on here. I mean, people were very much divided. So people said, oh, you should have done your research. You should have done that. You should have done this. And I'm sympathetic to that as well. Like, okay, if you want to, guarantee have the best experience, then, yeah, I think a little bit of research could help in that regard. I remember back in the day, kind of, up bright and early every single morning, reading the Mice Chat updates that would come out in the Mondays and stuff like that, and Mouse Planet and stuff, and getting all the details. And okay, here's the changes. Here's what you need to know. Here's how it might affect your trip, and so forth. Jesus, man. I mean, the operation at Disneyland Resort these last few weeks. I mean, it changes substantially from day to day, substantially, and man, if you are not in the know, you're going to be at a big loss. And when you're throwing down that amount of cash, it's going to be in your best interest to do at least a little bit there. So I can kind of go along with that, but at the same time, it's like, Jesus, do you really need like a kind of a thesaurus and get hours of vlogger time and research and multiple websites and Twitter and maybe a Disney expert on the side to get everything you need to know when going to Disneyland Resort? I mean, this is crazy. This is nuts. The amount of research that it takes to not even just get ahead, but just to have a fun day. It's crazy right now.
It is. Yeah. And we touched upon it, and I'm old school. I will admit, I am completely old school. Like if it was up to me, I wouldn't have any of these reservation systems. It would just be the way it was before. If you're hungry, you walk up and you wait in line. If you want to ride Rise of the Resistance, you walk up and you wait in line. That's the old school way I used to do it, and that's the way I prefer it. I mean, I'll adjust, I'll accommodate, because I have to. But I would prefer it not to be this way. But this is the world we live in now. This is what Disney wants to do. Is it frustrating? Yeah. I mean, we talked about it. It is frustrating. It's frustrating that I have to plan out what I want to eat in 5 hours.
And this, I agree. This is the way they're going. I would argue that the West Coast fan base is much more casual than the East Coasters. They don't set schedules and regiment their day in quite the same way that Disneylanders do or don't do or so forth. But this is why when we were talking to Rudio in discussion we had with him about Adventures Campus, this is why we brought up the fact that Ken Potrock was there. Because it's like, man, oh man, is it really important to get guest feedback on the ground and to maybe go through some of these processes yourself. And so many of these things are implemented. And it just feels like, wow, how would it feel if you went through those same things?
Right.
They're just being, they're adding these barriers and they're adding these things with no intention of experiencing themselves. They wouldn't subject their families to this. But yet it's okay for the guest.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why it's important that you go through this.
Right.
And experience it. And it feels like so many times that they implement something and they just don't think about it from their own perspective and standpoint. And then you have Bob Chapek spouting out going, hey, the launch of Marvel's Avengers Campus was successful, and it's like, what metric by which are you judging that from?
Right.
I can tell you. I mean, we went through it with Rudio.
We did.
We went through it with people who have been there, who have experienced it, who went through all of that, and looks like Campia is one of them. That had a completely different take on what success was than maybe Bob Chapek has. And you know what? Hey, Bob wasn't there.
True.
Kenny P was. And as far as success goes, or unsuccessful, I'm going to go with the guy who's been there.
Right. And I think that a lot of the thing with the reservation system is that it's the best system in the world when you get a reservation. You get that peace of mind. Oh, I got my reservation. You're locked in now. I'm going to go on Rise of the Resistance. I got my reservation. Yeah. That's fine. Once you get your reservation, you're good. But the problem is getting your reservation. That's the problem. It's the process that's total hell, you know? So it's like, once you get it, you're good. You feel great. You feel better than you would having to stand in line, like a standby line for 3 hours. But
correct.
But that whole process along the way, though, is hell. It's waking up early. It's the stress and sitting at the app waiting for 7 a.m. to hit, and that whole thing. It's unnecessary drama, And like I said, I don't know what the solution would be. Yeah. But I just, man, there's got to be something better than this. I'm hoping that they look at it and they really adjust things. I think that, like, you touched upon a great point, Vash, with like. The metric for success, Chapek says it was a roaring success, and then Campia, his tweet here. I think that a lot of these executives are very disconnected from the actual, from what's going on the ground. Yeah. And they see it as a numbers game. Chapek probably sees, oh, wow, the demand is through the roof. People are waiting around the block to get in, and the boarding passes are selling out like that. Which is true, and that's true. The demand is very high, but then you look at tweets like from Campia, and a lot of families are missing out on that, you know, and that's not a success for those families, No,
and look, I went through it myself, right before the parks closed, in January of 2020. We went through this. I wanted to see Rise of the Resistance. I'd heard about it for the West Coast. I'm sorry, for the East Coast for so long because it opened before. And I followed this project for so long. I was like, I got to see this. And I got to see it, about time near it opens. I didn't go the first weekend, but I went the second. Because, hey, who knows what operational headaches and things will be not missing on the other end. I did not know that a lockdown was going to come, that was going to close the parks down for 412 days. That's a whole other story. So we go, and I get my family together. It's like, okay, we got to go down here. We got to see this, but we have to figure out a game plan. And I did copious amounts of research on how to get a boarding pass, on where to stand, where the best cell phone towers were, where, how early do you have to arrive to the parks? And, we had to wake up at 3 a.m. just to be down there for the time, because back at that time, you had to check in before you could actually get that first boarding pass. So, or the only boarding pass for the entire day. And we talked about okay, well, do we get new phones? I had to get, I got a new phone just for that occasion, had to do all this stuff in order to ride Rise of the Resistance. And it felt great to get it for the 2 days that we were there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, Jesus, man, you should not have to do this.
No.
For a new attraction. And look, for new openings, for openings of new attractions, you can make a very good argument to have a system like this implemented, because we know that demand, it's going to outpace supply. Right. Not everybody, look, even if you want to do the highest capacity attraction at Disneyland right now, which is Pirates of the Caribbean, probably, you can make arguments for other ones, but we'll go with Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it's plus 2,000. If everybody wants to go that can be in the park at a single point, this is the old days, so 50,000, 60,000 people. If they all want to go to Pirates of the Caribbean, they can't. It just doesn't have enough capacity. Right. To facilitate all those guests. And with Rise of Resistance, when it opened, it wasn't operating at full capacity either. So you have to factor that in. And that a virtual queuing system is probably the best way to go for those things. But once that initial demand runs, it's probably best to take it off.
Right.
Rise of Resistance does not need a virtual queue. And you're creating more demand for it by having a virtual queue, because people feel obliged to get one now.
Right. Even if they don't go on it, like we've been like we touched upon in a video on your show, adding Indiana Jones to that virtual queue. Now people are just going to get it just in case they want to ride it,
Exactly. And there's nothing to stop them from doing so. And they have to streamline this in a better way.